Hey, this is Dave from MetalEpidemic.com. Thank you for checking out our YouTube video. Please feel free to hit the subscribe button below if you like this type of content, and we hope you enjoy the review.
This distance, persistent with villain. A crusader puts the whale that has never been gifted in the wishes of spilling.
What's up guys, Dave here from Metal Epidemic, back with another album review. And for this review, Duncan Kyle and myself have been checking out the deluxe reissue of 156 Silence' second album, Irrational Pull. The album was released on November 27th via Sharptone Records. So, some of you may remember me giving this a very quick, soapy hand job on one of our earlier podcasts when we were discussing albums that we'd been checking out. This album actually came out back in June, but it was completely self-released by the band after parting ways with their label at the time. And then fast forward a few months, and 156 Silence then got picked up by Sharptone Records. The band then announced that they were going to re-release the album in November as a deluxe edition with extra tracks. That for me is a bit of a double-edged sword, because I was happy that they were getting to release the album to a wider audience, an established label, but also meant that the album disappeared from all digital streaming platforms until the 27th of November. But here we are, the album was in for review, so all is right in the world again. So did any of you guys ever check this out when I mentioned it back in June?
No.
Or was it just ignored as usual?
I read the review, Dave. I absorbed what you said, and I said, I don't need to listen to that. I've practically listened. No, I can't even remember you mentioning this.
No.
Like, at all. Like, my lack of reading release notes as well. I thought this was at first a split album because of because of the slash in the band name. I thought it's a band called 156 and a band called Silence, and then like by the time I got halfway through it, I was like, that well, it's maybe kind of lofted towards one band getting more time on here, and then by towards the end I was like, no, this is all just one band, so this must just be one band. And Google could have wrapped up that issue for me very quickly, but I refused to Google, Dave.
I know what you're like.
So I didn't know.
Unless it's porn, obviously.
Hey, you don't Google porn? What sort of fucking weirdo are you? You use a porn site.
Oh no, I've never heard of this.
If you Google porn, Google knows what porn you're looking at. If you go to a porn website and use the search engine in there, Google doesn't retain that information on their servers, Dave, and thus won't come back and blackmail you for all that disgusting fucking animal anal that you watch. Oh, did I mention that? We'll have to edit that out. Not.
There you go. Every day's a school day, folks. I have spoken about this album before, fairly briefly. So you might be aware of my feelings about this album, but for those of you who missed it back in June, this is thick, metallic hardcore that's angry and completely pissed off sounding. And whilst it's not anything new musically, you've heard stuff similar to this before. If you listen to bands like Jesus Peace or Justice for the Damned, or even End, they do something similar in this vein to this kind of style. These guys have put together a very kind of technical, I'd say it's well performed and well executed release. It's quite a raw kind of sound. They've got quite a raw collection of songs for the most part that go from sounding completely unhinged to other parts of the release that are a little bit more delicate, a little bit more nuanced, and I think that array of sounds and emotions are all captured really well in this album. It's viscerally like pummeling at times. Like the production is done by a guy called Andy Nelson. I think he's done a great job with this, especially on the vocals by Jack Murray. I think he's really caught the intensity of him and his voice. He's got a really kind of gravelly sound, but I think it comes across really well in amongst all the kind of turmoil and stuff. Whilst it's got quite a it's got a very hardcore led sound, it does for sure have other elements going on. There are little nods to metalcore, little hints of new metal in there, especially on the kind of clean side of their sound. I thought it was a lot of kind of Deftones-esque chords slotted in at the right moment, just to give the album a bit of balance and texture. Code Orange as well, I could hear little similarities on some of the clean parts of like Lost Visual. And I think that's one thing that I really loved about this. Although it's a very chaotic and kind of emotionally charged release, it also has these big moments where they take their foot off the gas for just a second and let the track open up and breathe a little. As I said, this album is a deluxe version of the album, so it comes with 3 extra tracks: Vexation, No Angel, and there's also a cover of Alice in Chains' Them Bones. So it's about an extra 10 minutes, I think, of music. And I enjoyed the additional tracks. I thought Vexation and No Angel both have their heavy moments, but it was the melody on those tracks that really caught my attention. I thought they were very, almost like had a kind of poison the well type feel about them at times. It's far less kind of, I thought they were far less kind of jagged and breakdown heavy as the 10 tracks prior. But I found them both, those 2 tracks, very interesting. The last track, Them Bones, I don't think I've ever heard Alice in Chains sound quite as visceral as that. And I think, like, unless you're paying real attention to the lyrics, I'm not sure you would instantly recognise it. Like, if someone just played it in the background, I don't think I'd have picked up that it was Them Bones. Them Bones with added breakdowns is definitely different, but it's not the worst cover I've ever heard, but not the best either, but it's not bad. Kyle, had you heard 156 Silence, and if not, what did you think of this album?
No, I'd never heard of them before. And this album, it's interesting you mentioned that the label dropped them, and I think listening to this album, I can tell why.
I never said dropped. I never said dropped. I just said parted ways with the label.
Parted ways.
Amicably.
I can tell. Amicably or not, I think I can tell why. This is very well played, very well produced, very well executed by the band members, very generic metal. There's nothing here I haven't heard 100,000 times before, and it's like I didn't feel like they had their own identity, and I think their band name is a bit like what? Like you were mentioning before, it's like, was this a split album? What's going on here? I couldn't figure it out. Like 156, what does that mean? I can't figure it out. It was a hard sell right from the bat, and I listened to it. I was like, okay, I can survive through this. And I don't know, they've got some good ups and downs, and it's not all the same all the way through. They do have variation. They have the clean parts, and like you say, they take their foot off the gas quite a bit, and well, not quite a bit, but when they do, they let things breathe and they let things do their own thing. But I don't know, it just feels like I've heard this before somewhere, and it's not them, because this is obviously a reissue. No, it was really well produced, but I mean, I didn't realize that songs on the end were bonus, especially the cover when it comes down to it. Like, none of the songs really stood out except for maybe, I can't remember, Upset You Unfed, I think it is, when they start to take the foot off the gas and clean it up a bit. It's like, okay, you can do the heavy, unhinged stuff, which I've heard in like Ion Dissonance and stuff like that before. It reminded me of them a bit, but not as good. And but that cover, man, I instantly recognised it as Alice in Chains. As soon as I've played that song many times on bass, and like, I don't know, they sucked the life out of that song. I don't know what they did, but it's not a great cover. It's I mean, it's well played and they can play the song, but it's I don't know, it's missing that like swing and the bounce in the rhythm. It's just very sort of very rigid and very I don't know, that song has a lot of like soul and meaning and stuff, and I think playing it this way, I think kind of takes away from the meaning of and like feel of the song, which is not to say just cover it how it was originally written, but I mean, I think this was a wrong choice by them.
I think the melodies of that track are really important.
They really are.
It's kind of missing from this version of it.
I mean, I listened to this song and I got the original in my head straight away, so that kind of tells you. But it's like, I don't know, it was kind of a miss for me, this album. It's like, I don't know if maybe I could take back what I said generic. I don't think it's generic, but it doesn't seem like they have their own identity. I don't know if this is their first release or their fourth release or whatever. I'm not sure, but it feels like they need to go back and just figure out who they are and really work on that. And it feels like they've taken a lot of influences from different places and mashed it all together. But It doesn't feel like they've put too much of themselves into it. But other than that, it was played really well, and the songs are pretty well written for what they are, and production's obviously great. But I think maybe if they didn't include that cover, I would have thought better of it. But it was just like, what have you done to this song? You took that song out back and murdered it. So yeah, there you go.
Okay,
glowing review from me.
Duncan, what did you think?
We'll take the cover and put that to one side. I'm a big Alice in Chains fan. Like I weirdly, over time, the older I get, the more I enjoy Alice in Chains. And that's the single worst cover version of an Alice in Chains song I've ever heard. I just didn't like it at all. I think soulless is the way I would describe it. That aside, because that's additional, so that's not, this is them doing a little bit something extra to put some stuff out there to give people something to listen to and maybe get the album again on top of buying it originally off their one for the label. So that makes complete sense to me that there's additional tracks in there. Things I enjoyed, really liked the production on it. Thought production was nice and raw, and it suits the sound 100%. Really enjoyed that. Enjoy the vocal tone. Vocal tone is scathing, like really fucking pissed off, angry, snarly. But there's depth and there's texture to it as the release goes on. I think it works really. It's a versatile vocal style he's got, because when the guitars change up what they're doing, definitely mixing it. And I picked up, so once again, another band that are incorporating kind of Deftones elements into what they're doing, which is a big theme in 2020. It works, even with his vocal style. It really, really, really works. It shows the versatility of that. I think the songwriting is good as well. Overall, I found at times it became a bit samey. This once again is maybe not necessarily a genre that I am hugely invested in to begin with. So the elements that they brought don't feel necessarily generic, but to me feel like it felt very familiar. Like they're and at times a bit predictable. So I could almost feel where the kind of breakdown was going to come well in advance. Which, to be honest, is an accusation I can lob at pretty much the whole scene as a whole. Interestingly, you mentioned, and rightly so, in the same categories, bands like End, who are a band we listened to recently and reviewed, and they were such a remarkable surprise to me that we didn't know they existed. They've been on the go for years, and to me, what won them over and the style that they're playing, which is not too dissimilar here, is the riffs. Like the riffs at times did things that were unexpected and felt like very vibrant and really creative. And there's a combination of some stuff in here where a riff kicked in. I was like, that's such a fucking amazing riff. And it was then, preceded with a riff that to me felt like from a textbook of, this is a hardcore riff. So I don't know. Overall, it became a bit of a frustrating listen, because there are elements on here and individual tracks for sure that I think are really, 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 really good. And it's mixed in with other stuff which is just not my sphere of interest. They're very good at what they do, but it's always going to be a tough sell to me. I'm not the audience for this. I'm not the audience that 156 Silence want, because I just don't find myself that energetic or enthused about this specific style of music, and it's just because there's a lot of bands out there doing it, and the ones that do it to the point that I really enjoy are few. There's like a small nub that exists in there. However, like I say, that being said, there's a lot. I mean, if you're into your kind of metal, your kind of metal hardcore kind of crossover, I called them metalcore before we started recording, and they have metalcore elements. Are not a metalcore band. It's more like really kind of aggressive metal infused hardcore music. If you're into that, there's plenty to love here. I mean, they're ticking all the boxes in that genre. It's just not as a genre that I readily reach out to listen to. So as a result, a lot of it fell flat for me. And that's not them, that's me. That's 100% me. It's like with death metal. We've done the death metal thing before as well. Some death metal stuff totally finds its way with me, and I'm like, yep, that's a fucking great death metal album. And then there's other albums out there that fans of death metal are like, this is a 5-star album, and I listen to it and it just doesn't connect to me. I can appreciate what's done on it, but it just doesn't resonate with me. And ultimately, when it comes to music, you have to go with your gut. So it didn't fully connect with me. But there's a handful of songs in here that I think are really interesting. But interesting to see the elements that they started playing with specifically on those tracks that have been added out with the cover, where they started adding a bit more of that kind of twisted melody and stuff like that in it. Had there been more of that throughout the release, I think it would have varied it in a way that I would be more interested in. If that's a direction you're prepared to go moving forward, you know, it's going to gel more with me, because weirdly, the stuff they've tagged on at the end, minus the cover, is the most interesting stuff for me. So, there you go.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of agree with you there, actually. I did really enjoy the melodic parts of those other tracks.
Really good at it. It's really, it works so well with their sound.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so rating wise, as you probably guessed, if you heard me talk about this back in June, I really enjoyed this album. I love their mix of sounds and influences. It's not the most original thing. I've heard other bands do similar stuff, some do it better. But for the most part, I thought this was a pretty solid album. I enjoyed 2 of the extra tracks. The cover will probably be hit and miss with people, but overall, I'm glad it's back. I'm glad it's getting released again, so I can blooming listen to it on Spotify. So I'm glad for that reason that they've been signed to Sharptone, and I look forward to hearing what they do next. They've definitely got potential to do great things. I think the actual musicianship on the album is fantastic, and the production was great on this as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if they come back with something that's just absolutely crushing, and I look forward to hearing it. For me, I'd go 4 out of 5 on this one. I thoroughly enjoyed the album. It's not perfect, but definitely enjoyable. Kyle, what are you giving this one?
I mean, it was well played and well produced and everything, and they clearly know how to play their instruments, and they're not messing around, is what I want to say. And they have a vision. I think they just need to refine it. But I mean, that cover just ruined the whole thing. It's just bad. I mean, why would you put that on there? They listen back to them and go, yeah, we want to put this on. Like, this is Alice in Chains you're talking about. You know? So I think I'm going to go 2.5 for this one.
Okay. Duncan.
I'll go marginally above them. I'll give it the same thing I give like a death metal album, like I mentioned earlier on, that I can appreciate what's on it. Is just not my thing. It's a 3. It's a very well put together album. It's just a well put together album of songs that aren't really in my sphere of interest, my wheelhouse, my bag, baby. So 3.
Nice one. This one will drop on November 27th. It is Irrational Pull, the deluxe version. If you want to check these guys out, you can find them on Facebook at facebook.com/156silence. We'll put a little link in the description below. Thanks for checking out the review. Much appreciated. I'll be back with another review very soon. But until then, take care. We'll speak to you soon.
Bye, everyone.
See you later.